How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
I hate when I leave that thing up. This is Jonathan Gillum. And this is The Experts on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And today, we got a lot to talk about. How about I turn this down just a little bit? There you go. We're going to talk about this pure failure of Broward County and how, despite evidence in the news that Broward County failed over and over and over to stop the shooter that shot up a school earlier this month, the same nonsense is still being perpetuated pushed forward about gun control and about this march that's coming up and this nonsense, and how people, they don't see that. They don't understand the communist connection. We're going to talk about that, about the New York governor's race, what a joke that is, and also about this Austin bombing that's happening right now. That is a problem. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So maybe you like my Mobile One racing hat. I haven't worn this hat in forever, and I figured I would switch hats tonight and wear this one. I like this. It's kind of got my NASCAR feel about it, although I think it's a little too tight. Don't look at my hat hair here. I don't know. My head's kind of weird. It's misshapen, so it's like can't tell where it's too big and where it's not. There, that works. Okay, that's good. There you go. All right, so this is going to be an interesting show because right now, I'm feeling pretty calm. I've done a ton of interviews today. I was on Breitbart this morning. I was on Inside Edition today. I was on John Goodman show. I don't. He's out of the Midwest somewhere, and had a meeting at Sirius, and then was on Hannity's for a while talking about this these bombings that are going on in Austin. So it's been a very busy day today, and then answering all these different emails, especially Inside Edition comes on at 7 p.m. So and let me just show you in case you didn't get to see that. This is basically what it did was I showed them how, and for the people in Austin, how you can how these tripwires are made. Now remember, when you're going to see this, it's a light switch, but basically in a bomb, when you have a trip switch or a pressure switch, it's going to make a connection. Something's under pressure, and when it's released, like the other side will make a connection. And so the same thing with a trigger switch, when you'll have a string set up or a cord or some type of thin wire, and people will walk by and trip it, and they will cause the initiation to occur because there's going to be this sequence is going to be initiated through contact of whatever that's doing. In this case, the light coming on represents the explosive going high order. So let's show this real quick.
William rigged up a trip wire to show what to look out for. So here's our actual trip wire. Let's see if this works, and whoa, there we go. You walk through, string activated, the light switch, light goes on. Sure. In Austin, this could be the bomb, this could be the explosive.
Yes, I did trip over my own tripwire. My foot got caught in it. So there you go. And I hope that people realize that this kind of takes on a whole new level of danger in the fact that what it's showing is that not only is this bomber able to manufacture explosives that work, which is probably one of the hardest things to do when you're working with explosives, but also this individual has now added in there another technological advance for him. I mean, there's tripwires all over YouTube that you can look at in order to make a signal in case you're camping. Security. But nonetheless, it's the same tripwire. So you can see that all over YouTube. It's not difficult to make. But the process of making a tripwire and integrating it into an explosive that actually goes high order and works, well, that takes practice. It takes skill. It takes somebody. A lot of the times, I guess people can get this on their own, but I would think in this case it was there may be somebody that has taught this individual. They may have been trained. They may have been a part of the military. I mean, look, not everybody that's in the military, such as myself, they're not going to go out and do stuff with their training like this. So it's best if we don't rush to a judgment. This person obviously has military training and so on and so forth, but there is a possibility that this person may have some training from somewhere. If it's terrorist, it could be that he got trained overseas. There's all kinds of different processes that we could talk about and how this person got the knowledge to do this. But the hardest thing really about explosives is not once you know how to do it, being able to do it and sneak in there and get it done. Believe it or not, that's probably one of the easier parts, is deciding, you know, where you're going to put it in order to get a effective hit on people. But it's learning how to work with explosives without killing yourself. That is really the hardest part. Inevitably, in order to make your primary charge go high order, you may need a booster for that. And so the booster is going to be a little bit more unstable, and the primary charge, if they do it right, is going to be more stable. That way they don't blow themselves up. But in the case of like the Sarnoff brothers in Boston, they were using basically ready-made explosives by going and buying a ton of fireworks and then scraping out the explosives inside that. You know, I mean, it's very little, but they can, over a period of time, they could put that together and manufacture pipe bombs and pressure cookers. So that's we don't know what the person's using inside these explosives. I'm sure that law enforcement has seen basically if it's the same person, they're going to see a repetitive nature of how these explosives are made, most likely. And so that's why I think that they are on to the type of explosive. If somebody has done this type of thing in the past, well, it'll show a footprint or fingerprint or whatever you want to call it, a reoccurring technique of how this person builds bombs. So that's one of the ways they can track these people. Remember, when it came to the Timothy McVeigh bombing of the Murrah Federal Building, what actually broke the case for them was that they found a part of the axle that had a serial number on it, and they were able to trace that back to a Ryder truck that they had rented. They used their name, evidently, and so they were able to track them. That's how they found them. So in this case, you know, I don't know exactly how they're going to catch this person. You know, this is a city, so it's pretty big. And this time, they didn't blow up somebody that was a minority. It was two Caucasian men, and they did it in another place that wasn't adjacent to where the other 3 bombs had gone off, that 16-mile radius. So now they're kind of up in the air about the motive and about where this person may strike next. What I would suggest, if I had the chance to talk to law enforcement, is I would take a close look, and they may be doing this, I would take a close look at the people that are actually being targeted. Now, when you put a package on somebody's doorstep, that's much more telling of they specifically wanted someone in that household to get that bomb, unless they just randomly picked doorsteps to put it on. But when it comes to a tripwire, excuse me, what they, depending on where they put it, they may have not been able to pick the person. But like if you put it in a driveway or on a sidewalk in close in proximity to somebody's house, maybe they were going after a particular person again. I don't know. So they're going to put all these things together. But I would look closely at who has been targeted, because it could be them. It could be somebody they're related to. This could be retaliation. It could be gang involvement. I don't know. So I think it's very important for law enforcement to look at all aspects of the people that are getting attacked. And that perhaps could tell them something about the motivation. What backgrounds, not only of the people that got hurt, but other people that are in that house. So I've been trying to think all day about what type of advice to give to the people of Austin. And that's a hard one. I would say, by and large, if you drive a car, I would clear a path to your car, and then I would drive straight to work, straight to the grocery store, and I would come straight home. I wouldn't deviate, and I would stay at home as much as possible, not touch any packages that you see anywhere, and call the local authorities if you see something that's suspicious. And something, what would you classify as suspicious? Anything that would not be on your doorstep on a normal day, anything that would be on the sidewalk that wouldn't be on the sidewalk on a normal day, and anything you see in the road or on a path or a trail. I wouldn't be out. I just wouldn't be out right now until they catch this person, because now that he's shown that he has the ability to alter his improvised explosive devices, it really does. It really does change the dynamics of the whole city of Austin. So my prayer, everybody hates this, my prayers go out to Austin, but I really do. I feel for these people, and I'm almost positive that this individual is getting a power surge out of this, knowing that he's keeping the entire city hostage. And that's basically what's happening here. An individual, most likely one individual, unless it's terrorists, but whoever this is, they are, and you see how simple this is. Let me just say this other thing. And this is very important. I know there's several people in here who've worked in and around the government. I know Richard's worked in and around the government. We have, and Nicole Cupp, is other people who've worked for the government that are watching this. And you know that, and everybody's seeing how simple it is to cripple a city with a few random attacks. Remember what happened in Washington, D.C. with the snipers? Well, now you have a bomber or bombers that are able to just throw everything completely off because of the way they're picking and putting these things out there and either randomly injuring people or picking certain people. But nonetheless, it's shocking to the city. And everybody that's worked for government will tell you that the way cities do these things is different than the way military does it. In the cities, when they have an incident, they throw everything they have at it. And before long, what you have is a completely exhausted force. So imagine if these bombings were coordinated with a shooting, and then imagine if it happened in 2 other cities in the United States. Now, at that point, the federal services would be tapped after 2 weeks, after a week, really. They would be tapped. And what would happen is we would start to see a breakdown in the ability for law enforcement to man these things, because they still have not learned the lesson. I've seen this repeated over and over again. They throw everything at the problem, and they don't maintain, a lot of the times they don't maintain a catalog of the interviews and the evidence. And believe it or not, it happens where they're not coming back and say, okay, I cleared that interview. All right, so we'll clear that out of the book, and then we'll send this person over to see this other person. What happens a lot of the times is they don't clear it because they're not cataloging stuff properly, and so they'll send multiple people to do the same thing over and over again. That's one thing. The other thing is, everybody wants to be a hero, so everybody runs to the sound of the guns, and they have not prepared themselves for the long haul. Everybody always thinks it's going to be over quickly. So what happens? Everybody runs there. I get that. They initially respond, and then everybody just keeps working. And they don't tell, you 15 people go home and sleep. You 15 people man the command post, and you 15 people are going to be hot and heavy for 8 hours. And then rotate those people around. They don't do that. They just throw everything at it, and after a while, people are exhausted, and the ability to maintain multiple things going on at the same time starts to break down. So we've been lucky so far. In Washington, D.C., when we had the sniper attack, if we would have had this going on at the same time and a school shooting, we'd be tapped in this country. So it's very important that that law enforcement remembers this, and that they work diligently at a pace that they can continue over the long haul, because this may take a while. So what hold on one second here, folks. So what I suggest to the people of Austin is that they take a deep breath, calculate their steps and their movements, and be aware of what they're doing. I'm not saying go out and get silly string, but some of the guys have written me that were in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they were talking about how they would use silly string like kids have in order to spray the area that they were going back and forth on a regular basis to see if because it would land on a tripwire, and literally it worked very well. Now, I'm not saying go out and do that, but I would be, before you walk out and go to your car in the mornings, you got to figure out a way whether, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you live in a city where somebody's using tripwires, you know, if you have a rope, get some rope, tie a rock to the end of it or something heavy, and throw it out there and drag it back towards you. Don't get anywhere close to where it's got to be a long enough rope where you can throw it a good ways and then drag it back, because at least that would be some way that you could clear a path to get to your car. And from that point forward, I would go straight to work and come straight home. Don't go on long walks. Your dog can eat it for a little while and not go for long walks, and you don't have to go eat out. You don't have to go just relax for a while and take a deep breath. Talk on the phone and play video games like a kid for a while, and let law enforcement do their work, and hopefully they'll catch this person. All right, let's move on to the next block, which would be the A block, and let's talk about the governor's race. I'm going to do that next, and then I'm going backwards on the way we're doing this today. So, the governor's race in New York City, I've got to pull this up. It's unbelievable. So you may have watched Sex and the City when it was a big hit, and there were the 4 girls, and Cynthia Nixon was the short-haired star, and she played, who did she play in Sex and the City? Let's see here. Somebody help me out. Who knows what part that she played in Sex and the City? Is the woman with the short hair? Anybody know that? Let's see here. Miranda. She played Miranda. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't have my Sex and the City, knowledge. I didn't really watch that show. I did work Sex and the City 2, the premiere of that, which was, believe it or not, very tense, because they had a whole part of that, the whole bulk of that movie was about Islam and about women's rights. And so there was 5,000 to 10,000 people out there watching the red carpet. And of course, Bloomberg at that point in time wouldn't shut the road down at Radio City Music Hall. So anybody could have driven by. There was buses, trucks. We had a semi truck. There were vans, cabs. Any of those could have been loaded with the same amount of explosives that Timothy McVeigh had, and literally killed 3 times the amount of people that died on 9/11. But people like Bloomberg don't think about that. And that's the same thing with the governor's race here in New York City. So Cynthia Nixon, who played Miranda, is going to be running against Andrew Cuomo. I'll do my Andrew Cuomo. Hey, yo, Andrew Cuomo. That's the way he talks all the time. I think he is probably one of the worst governors that's been in New York. And so what hit me when I looked at this was the fact that this is all you have, New York. This is it. This is the best that you can come up with. An actress and a Goomba. That's it. You can't come up with I met Pataki. I'm not saying just because he's conservative and a Republican. I met Pataki. I sat with him and talked with him at Newsmax. He is a great guy, smart, with real experience in a career. I mean, the guy is a leader. When you meet him, you think this is a guy I could follow. So when I look at these people, it's really a joke, folks. There's I have Wally Grand, who's been on this program before. He's 75 years old. The guy could be a governor and do an amazing job. Neurosurgeon, military veteran. So incredibly bright. His wife, Laura, same way, another doctor, amazing woman. These are the types of people that could run this state with no problem. Hell, I could run this state better than Cuomo, and I don't have any beef with anybody. But just the sheer fact that I'm conservative probably wouldn't get me elected, even though I look at realistic solutions, and I don't let what I internally feel about my life and the way I live my life get in the way of how situations and issues and crisis can be effectively solved. That is really more of a solutions-based, realistic or realist approach to leading. When you look at Cuomo, you look at this Sex and the City star, Cynthia Nixon. What experience do these people have besides egos that they can go out and govern a state? It's especially a state that has the biggest city in the country, one of the biggest cities in the world. I mean, I've seen this state and I've seen this city. De Blasio is another one. How does that happen? New York, can you tell me that? Even people that I know that are liberal, that live in this city, are shocked at the amount of homelessness that has happened since de Blasio took office. And they're shocked at how filthy it's gotten, how the whole place smells like a pot ashtray, and they're sick of it, quite frankly. Well, that's what they get for hiring somebody like de Blasio and somebody like Cuomo. Cuomo, who goes and lays with these students in this, it was a protest, a political protest. It doesn't matter how all these people that are writing me saying that, it was the students' idea to have this walkout last week. That's baloney. There's no way that these students from Florida came up with an idea and were able to finance, organize, and control it in 1 week. There's just or in 3 weeks. There's just no way that could happen. They had to have help from people who are very connected all over the country, activists that hate the Second Amendment, that are Marxists at heart. And that's the other thing. So many people just refuse to look at the reality of who these people are behind these marches and behind these protests. They just refuse to see this. And in the case of this walkout last week, and all these parents that thought, oh, it's just, it's these kids, they came up with it themselves, they're just exercising their First Amendment right. Well, that's not quite true. These are young people who have not experienced the world. They have no clue of the reality of what the Second Amendment and the rest of the Bill of Rights are all about. Many of them think the Declaration and the Constitution are the same thing, and they don't realize that these rights that they have are what give them their freedom. And that's what changed in history when the United States became a country and the Founding Fathers looked back at the Magna Carta and all these other things that had been written and implemented in government, and they said, we want this, and this works, and that doesn't. And they put it all together, and they came up with this Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And young people don't realize that any infringement upon that Bill of Rights, and even though they're called amendments, it does not mean that they should be amended. One girl on Facebook today wanted to write, or she's been going back and forth with me over the past couple days, and the only reason I'm entertaining it is because she's young, and because I think that possibly I might be able to school her a little bit on this, because she's one of these people who come up and they love to just throw insults out, and they love to say, to somebody else. And the reason I even came up was because I told her if she kept equating people who are pro-NRA and pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment to Hitler, I was going to block her off the site, because and she said something about one of the people on there, and they say it in this condescending way, well, you must not have been against Hitler when he was killing Jewish children. Now, that's just stupid. And so I told her, I'm going to block you and ban you from the page if you continue to do this, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to have the dialogue. If you want to learn or if you have something to share, we'll listen. Well, she's one of these people that does not listen. Just does not listen. I want you to hear me. You need to hear me. I'm right. Listen to me. And the fact is, these young people have no life experience. They have no education besides what they're getting in high school, and quite typically, they're not much more educated after the 7th grade. And that's why newspapers are written at a 7th grade level. And so what you have is young people that activists and politicians are saying, well, you should listen to these kids, and activists and politicians that are putting them out front because they know they can say things that they won't be able to say. And so they allow them to go out there and pull the sympathy card. And at the same time, they're saying you should listen to them. They're mature. They've been in a shooting. They know what they're talking about. But yet, at the same time, they're saying, but they're not emotionally stable enough to carry a weapon. Yet we have 18-year-olds that deploy every day in the military that can carry weapons. And there's legal gun owners at the age of 18 all over this country that have never shot anybody but a deer or a squirrel. And talking to these people to get them to see the fact that, one, it's not planned by students, and two, it's not organized by students, three, it's not paid for by students, and four, that the people that are behind this stuff are Marxists. Many of the people that are involved in this were involved with the Women's March in Washington, D.C. That's Tamika Mallory. She's a racist and a black separatist. She is also pretty much a Marxist. You have Linda Sarsour, who is a fundamentalist, Muslim fundamentalist, a jihadist, and part of the Muslim Brotherhood. You have just on and on. The list goes on and on with all the politicians that are involved, which we went over many of these people who are close friends with Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam leader, who is also an anti-Semite, a racist, a separatist, and hates the Constitution. And so these politicians that are sponsoring this stuff and that are involved with it are also part of this. Anyway, getting back to New York. When I talk to young people, they don't even get it. They see Andrew Cuomo lay down with them and they think, this guy is amazing. What they fail to realize is Andrew Cuomo has got about 4 people around him at all times, maybe more, who have guns that will shoot anybody that looks like they're going to be a threat to the governor. And these kids don't realize that is there for a reason. That reason that those men and women that are carrying guns are with the governor is because he's the governor of a state and he has threats against him. How do you defeat those threats? Well, you put together trained men and women that are armed so that they can repel any type of attack with an equal or greater force. That's what the Second Amendment is. And these kids don't see it. They're wooed by celebrities like Cynthia Nixon, who played Miranda on Sex and the City. They're wooed by politicians like Governor Cuomo when they come up there and play the political game and lay down with them. Just like when they kiss babies, they could care less about babies. They're doing that for a vote. And the people need to realize at the same time they're protesting guns, and that's what it was. It wasn't so much about in honor of the 17 children that were killed in Florida. It was more about let's stop the Second Amendment and the NRA. Let's make NRA the bad guy. What they don't realize is while they're there laying with this guy protesting this, he has a team of armed individuals around him to protect him. At the same time, they're protesting the very thing that allows us to be armed to protect ourselves and our rights against an armed government. But you wouldn't get that understanding from these kids because they're never taught this stuff. They're never shown this. And so it is this cycle that's going on in this country of people that have no knowledge, yet they just consistently are taught that they know and that they are that they have every right to assume that they know as much as somebody who served in and around the military and law enforcement for 20 years and has 2 degrees and has done all this stuff in me. They think that they know as much as I do. And what's worse is it goes even further. I know that Jill has some guy on her Facebook page that is a boiler tech in civilian world, not in the military, and he's on there equating himself as a first responder because after 9/11 and after the well, I don't even know the truth about 9/11. He's probably lying about that, but he said after the hurricane, he was responding to people's homes so that to buildings so that the boilers don't explode. Hey, if that's what he's doing, great. That's great. I wouldn't want to work around a boiler. It's like a well-controlled bomb, but he's not a first responder. And he's equating himself to military veterans and law enforcement and paramedics. And that is Absolutely ridiculous. But you get adults that are in the same predicament as these children, where they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the understanding, and they don't have the experience. But what they do have are the egos, because they've been told, because they have Facebook, because they have Instagram, because they have Twitter, people have liked what they have to say. And so after a while, after enough selfies and after enough confrontations, they think that in order to be smart, you have to never, ever give up on your opinion. And that is not the case, because if it's not an educated opinion, it may be the wrong opinion. And so anyway, how I get back over to these people running for governor here in New York City, you have an actress who I hear is not a nice person, and you have Andrew Cuomo, who I don't know if he's smart enough, but he sounds like an idiot, and who's definitely a leftist politician. And you have these two people, and I just have to ask, do the people in this state not get the fact that these people are not, I say again, are not qualified for this job? It is unbelievable that they would even be remotely considered. I mean, look at Marco Rubio down in Florida. That guy has never done anything in his life except graduate college, and then he goes and runs for a state politician, and that's it. That's all he's done. And then he went into federal as a federal politician. So there's nothing there. There's nothing there that he has done outside of being a politician. He's got the worst voting record. He out there in D.C., and he's just a perfect example. It doesn't matter if it's the Republican or Democratic parties. These people are worthless, and the American people in the state of New York, you've got to get a clue. Stop electing people that are well-known or people that tell you what you want to hear and feed that opinion, and start looking for people that know what they're talking about. Go away, Miranda. All right. Let's I got two other things I want to talk about. Let's go to the B block. So, I told you I was going to kind of save this till last. Some officials wanted Stoneman Douglas suspect Nicholas Cruz committed in 2016. This wasn't just a couple of months ago. This was in 2016. The failed sheriff's deputy that ran from the sound of the guns actually did it right at this point. He and the school counselors wanted the guy who ended up being the shooter, Nicholas Cruz, they wanted him committed under the Baker Act. I said Ford Act today when I was on John Gibson's show, but it's the I said Goodman earlier, John Gibson. It is the Baker Act. And so the Baker Act makes it where they can involuntarily commit somebody for a period of time so they can get an analysis on this individual. And had they done that, most likely this kid would not have been able to buy a gun legally, which I don't know if he has the wherewithal to go buy one illegally. So unfortunately, like the rest of the Promise program, they ignored that. Broward County ignored it. And so, because they have this thing called the Promise program where they don't arrest students in Broward County. So basically what happened is that they completely sidestepped doing anything with this child. And so, as it turns out, he was able to go and purchase a weapon because he had no record of ever being committed. They could have also potentially gone and retrieved the guns that he had, if he had any at that time. I don't know if he did. So, as you can see, a total disaster in the way that things were handled in Broward County. Absolute disaster. And just another example of what I keep talking about when it comes to the Second Amendment. It's the last thing you should touch. Why would you touch your God-given rights that have been ensured through founding fathers that literally escaped tyranny? Why would you then go and mess with those when you don't have to? This shooting in Florida, the shooting in Texas at the church, all were a part of the same type of failure. That guy in Texas was in the Air Force before, and he failed. He went to jail in the Air Force. I think it was for domestic dispute, for beating up his either wife or girlfriend. And the Air Force, even though policy said they were supposed to, they did not turn over those records to law enforcement when he got out with a dishonorable discharge. So law enforcement never knew about it. So he walked in and bought a gun legally, and that's what happened. So this is, as we're seeing through these last attacks, there are points and throughout the time span of these people's lives where they could have been caught. They could have been stopped. They could have been committed, and they could have been refused firearms in an illegal manner, not with having to injure the Second Amendment. And so in both cases and many others, there's no reason. The same thing with Columbine and Klebold and Harris. The sheriff's department there was warned, and they had talked to their counselor on numerous occasions. The same thing with the shooter in Colorado at the movie theater. His counselor knew about it, and they could have stopped these people and had them incarcerated, or I don't know if you want to call it incarcerated, but involuntary committed for a period of time as to evaluate them. I have no doubt that the kid, Adam Lanza, I believe his name was, that shot up Sandy Hook, that I'm almost positive that kid, that people, his counselors and his mom knew that he should be committed as well. But parents are afraid to commit their children because they don't want to face the fact that they have a violent tendency. So none of these people were ever even temporarily committed so that they could be evaluated. And so they were able to keep guns and get guns legally. So there's no reason why we should be injuring the Second Amendment. And it really does aggravate me when I see what's going on down in Florida, where they are immediately going after the Second Amendment. They're spreading that all over the country with these activists, big money donors, and politicians. And none of them, not one single person, is saying anything about these failed policies and this human error that has allowed these shooters to get these guns legally. None of them have said anything about it. If they had done it properly and followed the law, these people would never have been able to acquire weapons and carry out these shootings. So if you're a young person, or if you're just an adult that has been clueless, I recommend that you get a clue, and that if you're young and you don't know, that you shut your mouth and you go do your research. Stop thinking that CNN is research, because it's not. Fox News is not research, okay? Research is reading the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, the Communist Manifesto. Go watch Yuri Bezmenov so you can see. You can watch that on YouTube so you can see the reality of subversion, and how he particularly talks about how the United States is being subverted. And that was back in the 80s. And he nailed it. So before you vote for somebody like Cuomo or this actress, before you follow people like this weirdo sheriff, Scott Israel down in Florida, before you go on and do these marches and jump on the bandwagon, which could actually affect the way people see reality, take it upon yourself to stop, do some research, see what reality is all about, and start supporting and defending the Constitution that ensures your rights and ensures your ability to protect those rights from an armed, tyrannical government. Otherwise, go live somewhere else. I mean, if you really want that, you can get the same climate over in Europe or in Australia. They already live like that. That's why terrorists are able in France to attack and attack again and attack again. And every time there's multiple people being killed. You know what they did in Breslin? I think it was Breslin, where the theater was, where they shot up the theater in France. I'll tell you what they did. They went in and shot up the place. And then they went back, and the people that weren't dead yet, they cut their guts open and let them die. So that's the type of people that you're talking about on the terrorist side of the house. France, people have no way to defend themselves. So if you want to live in a country like that, go to France. You can smoke all the dope you want. You can sit around and allow the government to be at your beck and call when you're in trouble. And you will see that if you are caught up in a situation, you're going to lose because you're not going to have any way to defend yourself. Law enforcement is not going to be there to save your life immediately. And quite frankly, when it comes to France, it's a good time span before anybody actually does anything real. And if globalism spreads, you're going to have no way to stop it. Globalism is just another fancy word for communism. So here in the United States, I'm not going to go down that road. I want to be able to defend myself. I want to be able to, because the cops aren't going to do it. The cops are there to respond. They're not there. They don't stand by your side. The cops aren't like your dog. They're not happy when you arrive and sad when you leave. They're not there to lay their life on the line for you at the time that something happens, unless they just happen to be there. That's not what there's not enough cops to do that. It's not a 1-for-1 ratio. So in New York City, one of the biggest cities in the world, 8 million people in the surrounding areas, there's approximately 35,000 cops, uniformed officers of the NYPD. So I don't know what that ratio is, but it's not good. And you think it's even worse in most cities. So the likelihood of a cop being there when your attack happens is slim to none. They will respond, but they're just not going to be there. Secondly, when it comes to a tyrannical government, do you think the NYPD is going to stop that? No. Do you think that the military is going to stop that? Not the military that I see right now. There may be groups inside the military that will stand against it, but here, in most of the places in New York City and most places in this country, most of the big cities are so leftist. They're ran by leftists who are, you could call them leftists, communists, globalists, socialist Democrats, progressives. It doesn't matter. They all want the same thing. It's just they're coming at it from different directions. If the likes of McCabe and Mueller and Comey and Clinton and all these types of people are able to get a foothold, this government is going to, you think it takes a while? It'll change like that. I know my friend Drago, who I've had on this show before, he was living in a communist country, and it wasn't communist at first, but it quickly became communist. And then one night at 12 o'clock at night, they shut all the phones down in that country, and they started arresting people. And Drago was one of those people, and he spent almost 3 years in a Polish prison for having a typewriter because he was a part of the underground spreading the truth. He came to this country. After he got out, he came to this country. He became an American citizen, and he is shocked by what he's seeing here. Now, I would much rather listen to that guy if I was a liberal, or even if I'm a conservative, or even if I don't care about those things like I do. I really don't care about that. Or if you say you're a libertarian, guess what? If you're a libertarian, you're still going to have political views that are split between the Democratic and the Republican parties. The fact is, just look for effective solutions. But no matter who you are, that's the type of person like Drago that you should be turning to, saying, tell us the signs that you saw over there in Poland so we can look for that same thing here, because history repeats itself. But you don't see young people doing that. They're listening to the likes of, politicians like Cuomo, or, actors like, like Katy Perry. They're not listening to people with real sound experience, people that have lived in a communist country, people that have served this country and understand the reality of the Second Amendment. So it is a scary, scary time in this country. So what I hope is people get a clue. Now, last thing I want to say real quick. I'm not going to go to another block. This has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. But I saw this the other day and I figured, you know what? I think the people need to see this. First off, if you're watching on Twitter, make sure that you retweet this right now. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure that you share it. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube page, please do that. Please follow me on Twitter and like my page on Facebook. Now, I want to cover this real quick. It has nothing to do with what we've been talking about, but I figured it was important for you because I was kind of blown away by this story. 5 foods you should never reheat in a microwave. Never knew this. Hard-boiled eggs. Go figure. I love hard-boiled eggs. I just eat them cold. Shelled or unshelled, when a hard-boiled egg is cooked in a microwave, the moisture inside creates an extreme steam buildup like a miniature pressure cooker to the point where the egg can explode. Even scarier, the egg won't burst inside the microwave while it is being heated, but afterwards, which means the scalding hot egg can erupt in your hand, on your plate, or even in your mouth. To avoid turning your egg into a steam bomb, cut it into small pieces before reheating. Or better yet, avoid putting it in the microwave altogether. I don't really know who this is going to go for. Maybe Dave Robinson, but breast milk. I would hope that most people would know this, but many mothers freeze and store their breast milk for later use, which is great, as long as it's not reheated in the microwave. In the same way that microwave heats plates of food unevenly, it can also warm a bottle of breast milk unevenly, creating hot spots that can severely burn a baby's mouth or throat. So don't be lazy. Stick it in a pot, and like I've seen people do, where they start to boil the water and they put it in there. I'm not an expert on breast milk, but don't put it in a microwave. You don't want to burn your kid. Dave Robinson, do you understand that? And never mind. I'm not going to say anything else. All right. Processed meat. I better let that go on before I get myself in trouble joking around. Processed meat. I'm not going to lie. I'm guilty of this. Processed meat often contain chemicals and preservatives that extend their shelf lives. Unfortunately, microwaving them can make those substances worse for your health. In microwaving processed meats, we might unknowingly be exposing the chemical changes such as oxidizing cholesterol in the process, according to research. So don't microwave processed meats. Rice. I was shocked by this. I'm guilty of this one as well. According to Food Standards Agency, microwaving rice can sometimes lead to food poisoning. The issue with rice involves the common presence of a highly resistant bacteria called Bacillus cereus. Heat kills this bacteria, but it can have produce spores that are toxic, according to findings in the International Journal of Food and Microbiology. So they're surprisingly heat resistant, by the way. So don't boil rice. Boil rice. Don't put rice in the microwave. And lastly, here's one that really shocked me, because I've done this a lot for my dogs when I feed them chicken. Don't put chicken in the microwave. The most important thing to realize about microwaves is that their heat does not always kill bacteria, because microwaves heat from the outside in instead of the inside out. Okay, I didn't know that was the case. As such, certain bacteria prone to reheated foods will have higher risk of causing sickness when these bacteria cells survive. For some reason, I think they got that backwards. I thought microwaves heated from the inside out. I don't know. Bearing this in mind, either way, they just say you shouldn't microwave chicken. So there. So chicken, rice, processed meats, hard-boiled eggs, and Dave Robinson, don't be heating your breast milk in the microwave. There you go. All right. That's about it. I'm going to go to the Truth Zone, and then I'm going to go hit the gym and walk my dog. Hoo-yah. Let's do it. Oh, wait, I got one other thing I want to show you. I'll show you in the truth zone. Let's do it. All right. So when I logged on to Periscope, tell me if that's too loud, but when I logged on to Periscope, this is what I saw. Nope, that's Rico. Where's it at? There it is. Join us for the groundbreaking Inequality in America national tour. It was hosted by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Michael Moore. All of those people are millionaires. And I guess you know that Elizabeth Warren says she's Indian, but she won't prove it. Michael Moore is, I'm not even going to talk about his weight. He's just a moron. And he is a fake, caring person. If this is your idea of experts and understand the groundbreaking Inequality American National Town Hall led by Bernie Sanders, you have got major problems. Folks, like I was talking about Cuomo earlier, and this woman that played Miranda on Sex and the City. Michael Moore, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. I forgot her name there for a minute. Elizabeth Warren. These are great examples of people that are not qualified to lead anything. I wouldn't even work for them if they had a business. There are so many people in this country that are qualified to solve real problems in an effective manner. There are so many people that, even though they may not be economists, they know how to look for and listen to the right subject matter experts. But this country fails to insist that those are the people that are elected, that are hired, that step forward. In a large part, it has to do with the Republican and the Democratic parties, both of which are private companies. So what I suggest is something I suggested over and over, is that we in this country start distancing ourselves from the Democratic and the Republican committees. There's going to come a time when people are going to hopefully realize that this historical political takeover in the United States by these two private companies is one of the biggest reasons for the decline in the families in this country, for the decline in effectiveness of government, for the increase of violence, for the increase of people in our jails, for the lack of solutions to problems like the drug epidemics in this country, immigration, terrorism. You keep hiring these people and they are failures. And I'm telling you folks, if we don't distance ourselves from the RNC and the DNC, or if we don't just go after the RNC and take it back from that establishment, this country is doomed. So one of the same girl that was going back and forth with me on Facebook today was saying that the country belongs to the young people and the youth. And my answer to her was, the country belongs to everybody that's a citizen. And everyone that's a citizen should step up and take ownership and stop allowing politicians, celebrities, and the DNC and the RNC to use us for their own gain. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My good buddy Rico still walking around. This is The Experts. And remember, wherever you see me, wherever you hear this voice, wherever you see the letters CQRF, the truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow.
name is Dave Robinson, and I want to tell you about a book called Sheep No More. It's an awesome book, and if you order it, you will understand better about how to divide your life up into sectors so that you can determine who would attack you, why they would attack you, where, when, and how that the attacks would happen in every sector of your life. Go order this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. My name is Dave Robinson, and I approve this message. Peace!
Thanks, Dave. This is Jonathan again. Don't forget, if I didn't tell you, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock I'll be on Breitbart, and then I've got some other stuff to do tomorrow, but we'll start with that. And then on Wednesday I'll be on David Webb's show. Thursday back on Sean Hannity at 3 p.m. Make sure you tune in and spread the word that the truth has arrived. And like Dave said, go get the book Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Tell everybody about it. You won't be sorry that you did.
May the truth be with you. I'm out of here.
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.